Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new here, and welcome to part 2 of the books that I am unhauling. So in part 1 we looked at all my fantasy and thriller books that I am unhauling, and now we're moving on to our YA and our romance books. So just a little background if you haven't watched part 1. Basically I have decided to move to Melbourne, and with that I need to start to cull all my belongings because I want this move to be as hassle-free and not a financial stress on me, and I think just kind of culling the amount I take with me will definitely help with that, as well as I know that whatever place I do get and whatever room I get in a house share, it's going to be small. So I do need to just be more considerate with my ownings. Most of these books that I am unhauling, it's part of one of 3 categories, which is 1, I read it and I either didn't like it or I liked it but not enough to take with me. 2, I started it either hard or soft DNF'd it and just never got back to it. Or 3, I have not picked it up or thought about it since I bought it, which I think they're all just kind of self-explanatory as to why I would be unhauling them in this type of situation. Some of these books I would not be getting rid of if I wasn't making such a drastic move, but because I am, I just need a bit of less stress on the move. But let's get right into it because I know this is going to be a long video. The first little series we have is It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line and Sinker. I did enjoy these books. I did like them. I definitely liked Hook, Line and Sinker a lot more than It Happened One Summer. But I just don't like them or love them enough to feel like I need to take them with me. The next we have The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I think I was gifted this book and I just don't really have any intention of reading it ever. It was one of kind of the OG enemies to lovers book talk books, and even in that hype I just didn't really have that big of an urge to read it. It's a workplace romance and they're not usually my favorites, but yeah, I just never went to reach for it. I don't have any interest in it. If I want to see the story I can just watch the movie, but I've also heard not good things about that movie, so I am going to part with it. So next we have the Twisted series by Anna Huang. I read this whole series and honestly the only book I really liked was the second book, which focuses on the first girl's friend who is a princess. That is genuinely the only book in this series that I actually genuinely liked. The other ones, they just weren't my favorite. It was just too much of that possessive male before they're even together, and I'm just not a fan of that, so I just didn't really like them, so I'm going to get rid of them. So next I'm going to get rid of basically the entirety of my Colleen Hoover collection. I got most of these books in 2020 when especially It Ends With Us was really popular. I think out of the books I did really enjoy when I read this, there's lots of tabs, but I think just I've grown as a reader and matured as a person to realize the faults within this book, and I just don't really want them on my shelf. There's a lot of books in here that I bought because I was oh my god, Colleen Hoover, I love her writing, and I just never really got to them, and now I just don't really feel the need or urge to, so I'm just going to get rid of them and maybe support someone else's Colleen Hoover addiction. Next we have Boyfriend Material. I remember really enjoying this. There is a second book that I was originally intending to continue to read, but I just kind of think about this book less and less, and I do remember really enjoying reading it, but I don't really feel the need to keep it if I'm not going to continue the series. But yeah, so I've just decided to get rid of it. It was a good read. I think it's featured in one of my reading challenges from last year, so if you want to know my thoughts, it's probably in that. Next I have the Bed to You series, which is similar in sense to 50 Shades. That's just kind of what this series is the most similar to in way to describe it. It's a very erotic romance series. My mum loves it and she thought I would like it, and it again just has that very possessive male that I have found out I'm not a fan of. Something about just a man being possessive over a woman, treating her like an object before they even really have a connection together. He's just being you, I see you, I want you, no one else can have you. That just is a really big book ick for me, and this is kind of what it gives. The next book I have is Hooked. Again, mainly exactly what I've kind of said for a few of these. Very possessive male. I get it's a dark romance. I get it's like a twisted version of a fairy tale. I understand that. I understand it's dark romance. I just don't think dark romances are for me. Yeah, I think it was a mixture of like the dark romance and the writing style a little bit. I'm glad I found out that these books are not for me. Within that same thing is Priest. I bought this because I saw a lot of people reading it. For a while I was getting a lot of dark romance suggestions on my TikTok, and this was one of them, and I thought I would like it and try it, but after reading Hooked, I just don't think it would be something that I would be into. So next I have a couple of Christina Lauren books. So we've got The Unhoneymooners, The Soulmate Equation, Twice in a Blue Moon. I've read 2 of these 3 books. I have not read Twice in a Blue Moon. I am keeping one of Christina Lauren's books, and that is Love and Other Words, which, to no surprise, that's such a beautiful story. And I did really enjoy Honeymooners. I like the comedy in it, but I just don't have that sense of feeling as I do with Love and Other Words, so I don't really feel like I need to keep it. And I know a lot of people will probably really enjoy these stories and having them on their shelves more than I do. Next we have The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels and The League of Gentlewoman Witches. Now these books, they are such cute covers. Like, I love the covers of these books. I've read this back one here and like I enjoyed it, but it was like a 2.5, 3-star read. Like, I didn't really feel any connection to it at all. It was just, it's like a fun, whimsical, light read. It's like not anything deep or emotional, and I don't know, it just wasn't something I really enjoyed. The next book is Love at First Spite. I did read this one. It was pretty enjoyable. Again, it was just a light-hearted romance, like nothing too much in there. It was pretty good. I liked it. I liked the concept of it, but again, I just don't have that like emotional connection to it where I feel like I need to keep it, and it wasn't like a 4 or 5-star read, so I think I am just going to let it go for now. Then the last book I have in like the adult romance section is Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy. Elle Kennedy's writing is not my favorite. I think I'd pick this up to try and give her another chance, but I just never ended up going for it. I remember reading The Deal and it was alright, I liked it, but it didn't really compel me to read the rest of the series. Like, I tried reading the second one and I just couldn't get into it. So I think it's a mix of like the stories and her writing style that just isn't really for me. So now moving on to the YA books. So this is just like YA in general. I think it's a mix of like fantasy, mystery, romance, just general YA. So first we have the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series. I was obsessed with this series, especially when the movie came out. I watched the movie first not knowing they were books, and then I ended up buying the books, and I read the first and second one. I don't think I ever finished the third one, and I just don't really have any desire. I don't have that connection to it as I did when I was like 16, 17, 18 years old when the movies came out and when I originally found out about these books. So I just don't really have that connection to it. I don't feel like I need to hold on to them too. And kind of going along with that, we do have the Summer I Turned Pretty series. This one I didn't have as much of a connection to because the series came out as I've been in my adult years, and I didn't really connect to it as much as I did when To All the Boys I Loved Before came out. I also had more of a personal connection to that series, but this one, it was really good. It's really easy. They're light reads. I just don't really feel the need to hold on to them anymore. So next we have The Fault in Our Stars. This is a classic book. I read it in year 6, I believe. I definitely think it's better than the movie. Like, a lot of book to film adaptations, the book is better than the movie, but again, I don't feel the sentimental or emotional connection to this book anymore. I don't feel like I need to hold on to it. I just think I need to let that kind of like younger self connection to it go. Next book I have is Everything Everything. This again was in that time of me buying books where I felt really emotionally connected to them as a younger person, and I just don't feel it anymore. The book was great. I love the book. I have the movie version of it if I ever do want to revisit it, and I do genuinely really like the movie, so I would probably always pick that version over this anyway. So I am going to let someone else enjoy this book in the way that I did. The next book I have is Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. I read this back in 2020 during like the pandemic and we were in lockdown, and I did enjoy it, but again, I was 17 and I felt a connection to it in a way that I don't now. I've grown so much as a person, and I also can see the faults within this book that I didn't see when I initially read it as well. Next book I have is Puberty Blues. I actually had to read this for my Australian lit course for uni, and it was a decent book. It was very, very eye-opening into how women were treated in the 70s, like young teenage girls and women were treated in the 70s. I think the TV show does a good portrayal of that, but if you think stuff that happens in the TV show is bad, like it's described in a worse way in the book. Don't think I'll ever reread this. I had it for uni and I did enjoy the show in a way that you can enjoy that type of show, so I would always just go to the show rather than picking up the book again. So next I have my collection of Ciara, I don't know how to say the name, Cass book, which is basically the Selection, the Elite, the One, the Air and the Siren. I read these first 3 books. I have not read the second 2. I don't really have any interest in picking them up. I did really enjoy these first 3 books and I think they're definitely worth a read. You have to go into it understanding that it is for a younger audience. So next we have the Inheritance Game series. I read this last year, I believe, and they were really good. I just didn't have that 5-star feelingness about them as other people who I've seen read them did. They were good. I liked them. I liked the mysterious element, but it wasn't a 5-star. They were alright to me. Next we have They Both Die at the End. This is like a hardcover edition of it, and one hardcovers just kind of like aren't my thing, but again, I know that it's a sad book. I know kind of how it ends. It was a bit spoiled for me over TikTok. I just don't really have any interest in picking up this book, so I don't know why I would keep it if I'm not interested in reading it. These next 2 books aren't YA, they're more middle grade. I think both of these were for uni, so we've got Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Coraline. You had like your like fun kind of book, then you had like your more horror book for children, and again, they were for uni, so I don't really have any need to hold on to them anymore. I don't feel any connection to them, and I feel like it would be fun for a child to be able to pick these up. The next book is We Are Inevitable. This book was given to me by my friend Libby for, I think, a birthday once, and as much as I appreciate her getting it for me, I just haven't really felt the urge to pick it up. It is a YA book. I think it was given to me in 2021, and if I read it then I probably would have enjoyed it more than I would now. I just, again, don't really feel that urge to pick it up and read it. So the next book I have is Thug. Again, got this for my young adult and teen read course at uni. I did genuinely really enjoy this book. It's such a good book. It's so well written. It has such a deep message in it. But I just don't think, again, it's not something that I just had that feeling where I'm like, no, I need to keep this, I need to take that with me. It just wasn't on that side. Again, it's a really good book. I would highly recommend reading this series. It's super good. Next I have the duology If I Stay and Where She Went. Now this obviously has been turned into a movie. It's one of my favorite movies. It's such a comfort movie for me, and I did really want to read the book and like read the second book, but again, I just never really had the urge to like pick it up and read it. So next I have She's With Me and Stay With Me. This is a series that I've actually read before on Wattpad. It's like a Wattpad original book, and I remember loving the series. It's such a fun concept, but it's definitely very YA and written for YA, so if I try and reread it now, I think it would just lose that enjoyment of how I felt when I did read it. But again, I would say if you are on the younger side, I think it's such a good series. It's really interesting. It's a concept that I haven't really seen anywhere else myself. It's probably a concept that's out there already, but I haven't really seen it anywhere else. So I really think it's good. And yeah, that is 2 boxes worth of books I've decided to unhaul. But yeah, so that's today's video. Hope you liked it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.